Good afternoon, guys, and happy Monday to all of your sunshiny faces. Well, guys, I had another semi-productive Monday. I think like the only things I didn't end up getting checked off on my planner today was to do the dishes. There really wasn't that many to actually do anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And then also too, I didn't really do laundry. I actually just unloaded the dryer, but other than that, I didn't do like a new load of laundry because honestly too, I've been so caught up with laundry. It's like I really don't have enough to run a full load, and I'm not going to just run the laundry just to run it if I don't have a full load. Like, I feel like it's a waste. Even though again too, I could do like a small load or something like that, but I'd rather just wait until I have enough to do a full load. I'll just kind of pick up the clothes like from the different laundry baskets and put them in the laundry room, then wait until they kind of accumulate enough to get a full load, instead of just being like, oh, just because I have to do laundry every day, I'm going to run a load of like a not full load of laundry. So, and again too, it's not like there's anything that anybody needs out of the laundry, so it's not that big of a deal. But then I didn't completely finish. I do want to work on my Meyer list, probably maybe once I get out of the shower, and just kind of go over it. It doesn't look like from the ad, I already looked over the ad, it doesn't look like they have much of anything going on, but I do need to kind of go through the coupons and just find out. Again too, it might just be a handful of things, but that's really all that I need to do for Meyer. And other than that, like I said, I kind of finished everything else on my planner for today. But I was finishing up and working on some stuff, and then also editing as well. There were so many like sports games and sporting events on for today. The Bulls were playing, the Blackhawks were playing. The Bulls lost in like the saddest like last shot, and like I said, it was very it was very hard to watch because also too, they like dominated through the whole game and then they ended up losing. The Blackhawks was like, I don't know, not that close of a game, and I didn't watch that because like I was watching like the Bulls game, and the Blackhawks game kind of started after that, so I just caught kind of the end of the Blackhawks game. But it did look like they had some really good shots on goal, and they just could not get it in the net. Like, it just, again too, was kind of one of those like disappointing losses. It wasn't like, oh, clearly they were just outmatched or whatever. Like, both of those games are just very sad. But the one kind of highlight in sports has been that, and this is really weird, only over the last handful of years, like, have I really gotten into watching tennis. But I really love watching tennis. And again too, I don't know, I don't want to say it's like a weird thing to like to watch, but nobody really else in my house like watches it. Like, again too, my dad, ever since I've been little, has always watched, you know, football and baseball and hockey and basketball. And again too, during certain time, whereas like when I was in high school and just slightly out of high school was kind of those years of the Blackhawks dynasty years where they were winning the Stanley Cup and like all that kind of stuff. So I was very engaged in that. And also too, like when the Bears went to the Super Bowl back like almost very close to being 20 years ago, actually. I think it was probably closer to 15 or so. Jack was like a little baby, so you know, like I said, somewhere between there, like maybe, again, if he's 18, it was probably maybe about 16, 17 years ago. You know, again too, like I was little too, I didn't follow like sports that much. Also too, even though I was little, I do remember Michael Jordan like playing basketball, and like, you know, I remember Dennis Rodman playing, and you know, again too, I remember like a lot of the Bulls, especially like I say, kind of during that dynasty like years, even though some of it was also kind of like afterwards a little bit as well. Like I remember like the like late 90s, more early 2000s, and like Derrick Rose as well. Like I remember watching Derrick Rose a lot. But like, again too, that was when I was younger. My dad just watched a lot of sports when I was growing up, and then like I said too though, I kind of was engaged and I know certain eras of sports as well. But it wasn't really until I think maybe my first or second year like out of high school that I think I finally, for the first time, I think I got a smartphone. So I downloaded the ESPN app on my phone, and I had just started like following all the sports teams that I really liked. And like I said, I think this was kind of in the year that, actually no, you know what, it was 2016. And again too, so that was 2 years after I graduated high school. The year I remember this was because that was the same year that the Cubs won the World Series. And I remember I watched the Cubs like when they were in the playoff run the year prior, and then shortly after that I think I downloaded the ESPN app, like because more or less I wanted to follow the Hawks though, because again too, that was like in the dynasty era, and I wanted to like follow them and, you know, keep track of like when do they play, because I wanted to watch all the games, because like Blackhawks playoff hockey during that era was just so much fun to watch. And like I have so many fond memories, and it's so weird too because it was so many years that they were in the playoffs for like, I don't know, at least 6+ years possibly, you know, that they were in the playoffs almost every single year, and just watching it, even if they didn't win the Stanley Cup that year, like just watching playoff hockey was so much fun. But also too, the Bulls have had a little bit of their ups and downs, but you know, like I said too, watching the Cubs when they won the World Series, and that was the first year, like I said, that I downloaded the ESPN app, and I remember I watched almost every single game in that 2016 season that they actually won. And that was when I was like, wow, see what happens when I watch sports? Like all of a sudden our teams just start winning. And like, you know, get to the Cubs, who have not won a World Series in over 100 years, end up winning the year that I'm like dedicatedly following them. You know, like I said, I would watch like baseball games every now and then, but I was not like a dedicated follower of like sports and stuff like that. And like I said, where I remember that year specifically, like even if there was a double header on, like I would end up completely like rearranging my schedule to make sure that I watched both games of the Cubs game, you know, and like that kind of stuff. Like, and it was just, I was super dedicated that year to like watching every game. And if it was like, oh, we're gonna go out, you know, for, you know, to go see a movie or something like that, I'd be like, well, we have to be back at this time so that we can watch the Cubs game, or, you know, or something like that. I'm not gonna say dedicated, but just to sports in general, my schedule's a little bit more flexible than it used to be when I was like first really trying to like follow and watch almost every game. But again too, I do try and find time, like if the evening is kind of free, I will try and watch it. And that's when I tend to do a lot of my work anyway. Like I will edit and upload. I'll actually upload more in the mornings, but again too, I'll do a lot of editing, or I'll make my grocery list like while I'm watching the games anyway, because like I said, I like to watch them, but I also like to have them on kind of in the background. But the thing is that with tennis, again too, nobody in my family has really ever watched tennis. Again too, like my dad would kind of probably like follow like, oh, if Serena Williams like ended up making it really far into, you know, again like the US Open or something like that, like he might end up watching like, you know, a little bit of it, you know, getting to, especially like at the end or whatever, you know, if she was like the year that she won or something like that. But like I said, the last like maybe 2-3 years or so, something like that, like I was really into like watching like tennis. And the thing is too, is that like I was a big Serena Williams fan, but I just never really watched tennis that much. And it wasn't, like I said, up until just a couple of years ago that I really actually started watching it. And now again too, it's like, oh, the Australian Open's on, like I'm watching it, like again too, and I'm watching all of it. Even though I probably follow Coco Gauff the most right now, again too, I will just kind of like watch and follow a lot of like especially the Americans playing. But to me, it's almost like the Olympics, like, because, you know, again too, it's most of those big, like again, the US Open, the Australian Open, Wimbledon, like that kind of stuff, they are, you know, it's, you know, up against other countries. So it is kind of like the Olympics. And we've always been a really big Olympics family. Like, you know, we watch and like dedicate our time to watching it, and also to trying to make sure that we find and watch specific sports. So you know, like we'll have like the Peacock app on and watching like different ones, you know, like that kind of stuff, but just so that we don't miss a lot, because we do like to watch a lot of like the different sports, and we will go out of our way to just make sure whatever we're watching, you know, a lot of whatever the coverage is. And like I said too, to me it's a little bit like tennis is a little bit like that too, just because it is different countries going up against each other. If I don't really know who the person is, if like they're from the US, I'm probably rooting for them. But I don't know, I just have been really big into watching tennis, and like I like watching it, and I'm also watching it and like understanding like you know, because again too, it took me a little while to fully understand like all of the rules of football and all of the rules of baseball. And again too, there's some stuff that I still don't really even know, you know, like very obscure, you know, calls, like rules and that kind of stuff. Like it took me a little while to figure out like the pop fly rule, because I was like, okay, well, like, you know, again, why, more or less like, why is that the rule? Not like I didn't understand it, but just like, why is it the rule? Also too, my dad has officiated in both mainly umpiring and refereeing for basketball, but he's also done some other stuff too. Like I think he's done like a volleyball game, and like on occasion he's done some other sports as well. He might have done football possibly, but he used to do that a lot too when I was younger. but now he coaches football. So that kind of conflicts a little bit with either schedule, and also too, just in general, you can't normally referee a team that you're coaching. So but again too, for the other sports, he hasn't done it in a while. But like again too, I've always known a lot about the sports too, just by like, again, sometimes we would go to the baseball game or softball game or like basketball games just because my dad was refereeing them or umpiring them, and like we just watched, and like I'd learn the rules, or like I'd ask him like, oh, why did you call that, or you know, something like that. So like I just kind of picked up and learned them as well. But like I said, my dad, I guess, kind of played tennis, and my mom did too, which I didn't know. I had absolutely no clue that either of them really played tennis. My mom, like one of her teachers, I think, was like a tennis instructor, so like she taught her and maybe a couple other like kids from her class. And then my dad, I think he actually had like also a tennis instructor at like one of the parks that he was playing at, and like they used to play too, because my dad grew up in the city in Chicago. And so one of the parks, like I said, they would have like, you know, like inter tournaments and like stuff like that. My dad would like play in them, I think, or something like that. But like he did actually play, not professionally, but you know, like I said, he did play in some type of organized tennis, you know, like a function or something like that. And again too, I think my mom did as well. And so like I know my mom did that in track, but I don't know how young she was when she was doing like tennis. But anyways, I always wanted to do tennis. I even signed up for it for our like sports day at school, but I never really pursued it as like a sporting thing. I never played any sports in high school. I only played 1 year of basketball when I was in like elementary school. But again too, I feel like tennis is something that's kind of fun, and like I might not mind, like, you know, again, like not learning how to play, because that's, like I was saying, the funny thing is that watching it, I've learned so much, and like learned so much about too, like not just like the rules, but also like, you know, how the athletes like do certain moves, or like on their serve, like, you know, putting like certain spin on it, and how they like talk about that kind of stuff. It's just like really interesting. Like you learn a lot from listening to like, again, to like the announcers and like commentators and stuff like that in sports. And like also too, Jack was even saying, he's like, oh, I'd like basketball if I knew it a little bit more. He's like, I just don't watch it enough to really like know that much. And I was like, it's just watching it. Like literally you just watch it and you'll pick up things that like they're saying, and like the stuff they talk about, and like the rules, or like why maybe this person does this, or you know, again too, like all that kind of stuff. Like I said, I've picked that up from watching tennis now, and it's just one of those things that I love having on like in the background while I'm doing something too, and like I said, editing or uploading or making my grocery lists or whatever, because I like to, like, I don't know, sometimes I get kind of bored, like, you know, making my grocery list, and so like I can just look up, watch a little bit of the TV, maybe go back to making my grocery list. And so it kind of actually helps me stay focused maybe a little bit more, because if I got really bored, then I probably just put it down and go and do something else for a while, and then maybe come back to it. Whereas like if I have a sports game on or something like that, or again, like in this case, tennis, you know, again, I will end up kind of finishing actually what I'm supposed to be doing. But I don't know, like I said, it's been a thing that like the last handful of years I've been watching a lot of the different, like the US Open, the Australian Open, the French Open, like that kind of stuff, almost consistently. Like I will end up catching most of them, you know, in some capacity. I just might end up watching, you know, like a little bit of it, but like I still have been consistently like watching it. And like I said, I don't know, it is something that I'm like, I look forward to. I don't want to be like, oh, it's weird that I like watching tennis, but like in a household where, again, too, we love sports, but it's just not something that we've traditionally like ended up, you know, like I said, it's not something that like we'll put on TV, like, oh, okay guys, the US Open's on, we all have to watch tennis, you know, like that kind of thing. We'll just, you know, again, too, maybe if it's, you know, again, somebody in it is, you know, from the US is in a late round or something like that, maybe we'll end up turning it on or whatever. And that's why I think, again, too, it's just a little bit like interesting that I've gravitated towards watching it so much, because I don't know, and I don't want to say either too, like it's the new thing, like the new sport, so I'm just really like engaged in watching it, since it's one of the ones that I've kind of started watching most recently. And maybe also too, it's because some of our sports teams haven't done that well recently, like, you know, again too, the Blackhawks are kind of in a rebuild right now, and the Bulls, although they started the season off really bad, they've been a little bit, you know, again, better so far. The Bears, I don't know, not the greatest season either, you know, so like maybe I'm just kind of the teams that I root for and my hometown teams haven't done that well. That's why I'm like, oh yeah, like you know, again, tennis. I can watch that and really cheer and root for, like, you know, again, a player that I really like. So it's just kind of one of those things where, like, again, my dad, though, if you put any sports on in front of him, he will watch it. Though, if I put tennis on, my dad will watch it and he will be super engaged with it and, like, really likes to watch it as well. It's just not one of those things, like I was saying, like, go out of your way to, like, go and be like, oh, I know that the Australian Open's on right now and I'm gonna go and put it on and we're gonna watch it. My dad also makes it a tradition to make sure that he watches, like, the hot dog eating competition every year on the 4th of July. Like, my dad is all about competition and sports and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, whatever it is, I'm the one that initiates, like, oh, you know, tennis is on, we should watch that, you know, like that kind of thing. And so then, you know, I'll put it on in the living room and then we'll end up watching tennis or something like that. And so, but today I was in my room while, like I said, I was just kind of working and just watching tennis as well. But I'm gonna take a shower and get to bed. I will see you guys all in tomorrow's vlog. If you guys did enjoy today's, make sure you guys give a big old thumbs up. If you guys are new, we'd love if you'd subscribe, and I'll see all of your sunshiny faces tomorrow. So bye, guys.